No. You need at least 3 pilots in order to do a proper change getter. Cold opener featured what seemed like Hana taking her first steps, though as we'd soon see, that wasn't exactly the case. The episode proper opened with Ojamajo trying to make a new ending sequence. They made their way to the Mahodo to see Hana, who was having a peaceful little nap. Same couldn't be said for a certain fairy. Lala, go home. You're drunk. Oh wait, you're already home. Well, let me go get your car for you. Nah, of course, I know that face, as I see it in the mirror every time I have to sleep over at my sister's to take care of the niece. Hana had been keeping Lala and Majorika up all night with her crying. In the case of the latter, it had turned her into that stuff that created the TMNT. And while I normally laugh at this little toad getting a little karma, especially after her previous few outings, I have to say, Majorika was a lot more likable in this episode. Not only did she show genuine concern for the Ojamajo's education, but she had been bearing the brunt of raising Hana, even though technically she's not even her assigned parent. It's really good stuff, showing how she really isn't the crabby old witch from the beginning of this series, who not only hated kids, but was also selling them some dangerous products. A big part of this development might even come from reuniting with her old caretaker, convincing her that kids do need to be properly raised like she was. Legit, Majorika and Lala are the best parts of this episode that otherwise is, well... Let's get more into it first. That night, we got to see what was likely their usual routine with trying to get Hana to sleep. This included old standbys like making faces that are gonna haunt my nightmares for the next few weeks, as well as recreating scenes from one of the best movies of the past few years. Then again, she does look a lot more realistic than whatever this is. Seriously, I'm pretty sure this was the general reaction most audiences gave to that film. Slightly horrified confusion. And fortunately, that amount of brain processing eventually got her to go to sleep by the early morning. Feeling rightfully bad for the two, the Ojamajo offered to take care of Hana over the weekend while they took a much-deserved vacation to the hot springs. This would have been a really heartwarming moment showing how much the bond between Doremi and Majorika had grown, if it weren't for the copious amounts of toad snot. With that, the two left, but the Ojamajo were kind of rightfully worried that Hana might end up using her god baby powers and end up busting them as witches in the process. Don't y'all say what I think you're about to say. Yeah, I could already kind of tell what sort of episode we were going to get after this. I mean, okay, at first it wasn't anything too bad, as after explaining the situation to their parents, we got a legit funny bit of them trying to cover up Hana's, again, godlike powers. This is what happens when you let your kids play too much Nintendo. And yet, somehow the parents missed all of this and were more distracted by Hana making her first crawl. And yes, this is what they were actually hinting at in the cold opener. And sure, it's cute and a significant step forward for an infant, but I don't know, it just doesn't seem like it deserves this much attention from Doremi's parents, you know, as opposed to what's behind their daughter's back. But whatever, the comedy of the scene ultimately made up for it. Moreover, it was a significant plot point for later, as Doremi called up her friends to tell them about it. Later, she got a more proper taste of what Lala and Majorika had to go through every night. At least that's what it says here in your manual. Also, maybe I was wrong about Hana being overexposed to Nintendo. No, instead, I think she really needed to cut back on watching Train Spotting. Yeah, y'all can play all the happy BGM you want. You're not gonna make me forget about that literal acid trip of a black comedy. Anyway, wanting to see Hana's new crawl, the rest of the Ojamajo stopped by as Doremi was looking for her. This led to another really funny bit, as on top of not asking about the shiner she had gotten from Pop's Backfist, great friends by the way, Doremi tried to cover up the fact that she had lost Hana, only to slowly reveal the truth through just a few questions. Aren't transitive properties just so much fun? With that, the other Ojamajo turned into mice so that they wouldn't have to explain to Doremi's parents what they were doing at their house so late at night, while said pink witch ran around freely trying to look for Hana. Now, this was actually a pretty funny setup, especially with the baby trying to do her best Peter Parker impersonation, but then they went back to the old standard joke of having Doremi be the butt monkey as she became the fall-off victim to Hana's antics, which included breaking some furniture and closing Mr. Harakaze's manuscript without saving. いや3ページで終わるはずだったのに。ドレミ、お前触っ Bro, Control S. It's more your fault for not doing this right before you went to get some coffee. Also, crazy idea, but why not just tell her parents that Hana was on the loose? I mean, sure, there's a chance that their secrets will get busted, especially if they find her crawling on the ceiling, but the Ojamajo didn't know she was doing that, and really at this point, they could probably use any help they could get. Well, either that, or they could just turn to the good old answer all that was the magical stage, which produced a bouncy ball that led them to Hana in the bathroom where she almost fell into a full tub. Again, maybe getting your parents involved wouldn't have been such a bad idea. I will say though, it was at least nice to hear Mayumi Gojo's Pikapai Lucky again during this scene, as I'm pretty sure we haven't heard it since the first season, as it has been one of the more fun songs that really emulates the show almost perfectly. Otherwise though, things played out just as you'd pretty much expect. Doremi saved Hana, Mrs. Harakaze didn't question why her daughter and granddaughter were fully clothed in the bath, and Majrika took back a few dozen good points when she selfishly said that they were going to spend an extra night at the hot springs. And the episode just kind of ended on that. Yep, no big lesson or anything, just some more undeserved torture for Doremi as we irised out. This episode, I think, was okay-ish overall. I mean, there was nothing I truly disliked in the slightest, but there was also nothing that was really that great in my opinion, other than some development for Majrika, which was then kind of negated by that ending. However, aside from some likely unintentional references, I didn't find a lot of entertainment from this otherwise kind of mid-episode. With a heavily episodic series like this, having a few pointless filler episodes that don't even have any license to them is no big deal really. The only major caveat to that is of course that it should at least be entertaining. This episode had a few laughs here and there, especially when the sisters were trying to cover up Hana's magic, but then they just kinda defaulted back to gags that we've already seen throughout the series, like Hana keeping everyone up, and especially the Doremi abuse. I don't know, maybe it's my own experiences from helping raise my insane niece speaking, but stuff like this just felt kind of repetitive. Bit of a shame too, because the writer of this episode was Akatsuki Yamatoya, who would go on to headwrite one of the funniest anime I've ever seen, Gintama. Though the obvious difference between the two was how the latter was a very unapologetic, rude and crude cynical take on the shonen genre, while this show did have to play to a younger audience, even if it was also kind of cynical when it came to the magical girl genre. But yeah, as a result, they just kind of defaulted back to the usual jokes, which, while well animated, still amounted to just some funny faces. Now, of course, comedy is very subjective, so do feel free to let me know what you thought about all of this. Honestly though, I'm only bringing it up as much as I am here because there wasn't really any character moments to talk about. Majrika becoming the supportive guardian to the Ojamajo and Hana was actually nice to see, especially after a previous episode, but ultimately that was only for the first act of the episode, and the rest was just 4 witches and a baby with a little horror thrown in. But yeah, no big lessons were learned, and the only development was Hana crawling, which might become important in the next episode, but otherwise, it was no big deal really. And that's probably the best way to describe this episode, no big deal either way. It's not frustratingly bad like previous episodes, or amazing like the one that just came right before it, just a mid, very skippable episode. Maybe you could watch it just for that first act with Majrika, but for me, I'd rather not be reminded that I've got babysitting duties tomorrow night. However, when I've literally not been breaking my back for that kid, we have been working on the next Magical Girl Spotlight video. While we're not going to spoil it just yet, I will point out that it has been something that we've been wanting to cover for a while, and have even hinted at in other videos. I will say it is another toy animation, but one that I don't think gets quite enough attention like it deserves. Still, do look forward to it. Until then though, farewell for now, my friends, and if you'll excuse me, Uncle has a date with the chiropractor.